You've done it again. You've arrived at Coffee with Humans, live stream talk show where strangers become friends with my new friend, Mischelle. Mischelle, welcome to Coffee with Humans.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. So I'm excited to have you on board on the Coffee with Humans trip. I think that Coffee with Humans should be one of those cruises where it's like a Coffee with Humans cruise where everybody just comes on there. So this is a Coffee with Humans cruise today. Thanks for joining me.
Love it.
I do have to get this out of the way. Where are you located? I'll go first. I'm in Chicago, right outside Chicago. Where are you located?
Right outside of Kansas City.
Okay. All right. Well, see, there we go. You and my town's name is Rockford, and I always say outside Chicago because nobody knows or cares where Rockford is. Um, and you're probably in a town that nobody knows or cares about either.
Sort of compared to Kansas City, but it's Leawood, Kansas. It's a lovely community, actually.
Yeah, Rockford's a beautiful community as well. If you say Rockford, people are like, what?
Huh?
And I'm like, Chicago. And they're like, oh, Chicago.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I also want to know, I have to know for our regular viewers and listeners, they know that I don't meet anybody before we go live. So I got to know what inspired you to click the button to have coffee with me?
Oh, well, Coffee with Humans. Who can deny that? I mean, that's amazing. I love coffee. I love going to coffee with friends, all kinds of coffee. And I found this to be incredibly unique. And it kind of gets me out of my comfort zone as a podcaster. I kind of script everything. And you know what? Sometimes you have to be real, genuine, although I do try to be that way on my podcast. But I thought, this is kind of a cool thing. Plus, it's getting me out of my comfort zone. Relational. I love conversations. And hey, you're the man.
Well, I'll take that. For our new viewers and listeners, Coffee with Humans is a live stream talk show where strangers literally become friends. I don't know you at all, Mischelle, and you don't know me, other than you have a little bit of a leg up because you saw previous episodes, and we have now talked for roughly 10 minutes. The first 8 of which has been just technical checks and making sure that you understood when we were live and when we weren't live.
Right.
So we don't know each other at all. And I too love the idea of just having a coffee conversation with a new friend and inviting the world to it. So I did ask you before the broadcast what was on your mind, and I had to title this chat just because that's what has to happen for all of the YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all the places we stream. The healing power of your story, which and then you said this is going to be a deep conversation, and I love it because I mean, we can have a superficial conversation if you like, but if we could change the world through this conversation, why not? So that's my
absolutely
that's my goal.
Absolutely, that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, so take us away here on the Coffee with Humans cruise.
Oh wow! Well, so one of my passions is helping women heal from the power of story. And in my own personal life, I found when I shared my story of overcoming trauma through being exposed to a childhood cult at a young age, that there was a healing that transpired when I shared my story. And I also have seen throughout my life where women who have shared with me, because I can go anywhere, and it seems like I have a woman that wants to tell me what is transpiring in her life. Maybe it's I've got a welcoming face, maybe it's my spirit, I don't know what it is, but I have always found that where I've been, there has been one woman that God puts me next to, whether on a flight or whether I'm in the spa or I'm on the beach or I'm on the pool. There is a woman who, for some reason, needs to share and tell me what's transpiring in her life that needs to share. And so I found that personally when I had a story inside of me from being, in a very difficult time in my early childhood, and I suppressed it, and I needed to tell someone, and there was no one to tell. There was, that would hear, because I was too young when I was going through it. I mean, it took a lot of courage to be able to bring that out, to share it, because of what I encountered and what I experienced there. So it was a difficult conversation. But anyway, getting back to what you're sharing, I just believe that it is so important for women and men to share their stories of adversity or of great triumph, things that can bless others, and also bring a gift to others. And it also does something in a person's life, I think, and in their emotional base when they're able to share with another person. It's a gift. It's truly a gift. So I want to encourage, because of what I've seen, what's transpired, the years that I've been doing this, even through my podcast ministry, what I've been doing in other groups where I bring women in and have them share. I've seen that impact. I've seen what it does. I've seen how it helps others walk freely and to move forward in their life to be all that they need to be and purposed. So, that's kind of, my heart and how I'm speaking around this.
Wow. That is, I mean, it's profound. And I think it is one of those things, at least in my experience, that people grow up with stories that they don't want to talk about, and those stories control them. And
Yes.
and they can develop freedom. You can come out of that if you expose the story, because the story is, I feel like the story is read with a certain experience by the person whose life, the story came from, but it's
Yes.
heard in a different way by someone who reads it from the outside.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we could probably talk hours and hours and have all types of coffee around this, but absolutely, it's, of recent you've seen, well, maybe, but with what's transpired with the USA team, the gymnastics team, and those women coming forward and sharing what, they came out of, and the power of that, and how freeing even the mental health aspects have been for these women who suppressed their abuse,
Yeah.
and didn't share it. And for me, I developed rage, a lot of rage, and it affected me in so many different ways. Also, I've seen how it affects other women, when you can tell when they're not free and they're not walking freely, and they're walking with, something that just hovers over them, and how they carry themselves and how they walk, in terms of their confidence. And there's just so much to be gleaned from the freeing power of the story in terms of emotional health too. And I got to tell you, emotional health to me is one of my, it just is so critical in our culture right now, and always has been. But I've seen how important it is, especially having come through what we've come through with the pandemic. And, there's just emotional health. It's so, it's just underrated. And I just believe it needs to come to the forefront more. So, hey, healing
Yeah,
power of telling
totally.
your story.
I think what comes to my mind are a couple things. You're talking about, people who have dealt with things, and how controlling abuse and trauma is for a person, well beyond the point, that point of abuse. It develops into something different, and it takes on a whole life of its own within a person. And and even if it's not something, even if our stories don't involve abuse, let's say, or a
Yeah.
particular trauma, we are programmed to, it seems we're programmed to hide or deny or repress certain feelings. I went out to karaoke last night, and I was in a particularly emotionally vulnerable spot because I had just been at a men's group, and I was dealing with some stuff in my own life, and I've thankfully healed a lot of my inability to be open and vulnerable. And so I'm ready, I'm ready, raw, and throw anything at me. Anyhow, I show up at karaoke, and one of my good friends is sitting there, and she's, her countenance is just not, it's not good. She's, almost got tears in her eyes, and she's like, "Hey, I'm so glad you're here." And then she says, she said, "I just found out while sitting here that two of my friends died, from years ago in the military." And I was like, "Oh." And so then her next comment was, "So I'm not good company." And I looked at her and I said, "But you're not bad company." And I said, "Who told you that you always have to be happy go lucky and smiley and sit here as though everything's fine for you to be good company? Why can't you just be you, all of you? And right now you're sad, and you should be. And why can't all of you be welcomed in this space?" And she didn't know what to do with that. And then she just started crying, and we hugged it out. And then we
Oh,
talked a little bit. Hey, what are some good memories from these people? And what song do you want to sing to honor them? I mean, it turned into something really powerful. But it was that point of, who told you that you can't be around other people because you're holding these difficult emotions? Who
hmm,
told you you had to hold them in the midst of
yeah.
everybody else? Why
Hmm.
couldn't you just let it go? It was a powerful time at a bar with karaoke.
Hey, that's why I'm saying mental health matters. What you
Mm.
did for her was an incredible thing. And now she's going to go forward, and it's going to make a huge difference in her countenance and everything else because of that. And, I just think, like you said, people they need to be real. I mean, I'm not saying you need to obviously be yourself and be around people who are safe to be around, when you're in that state. But I know what I found is when, you just smile at someone or you show a little empathy, you know, it really makes a difference. I mean, I've had, like I've shared interactions with women who've been hurting, and men, who needed someone to just listen and to, show some care and encourage them, and that's why I think we are in trouble sometimes as a society, is that people are walking around trying to have this face, and it's definitely not the face of really what's transpiring. So, the story, telling your story, maybe it's a little less threatening for, you. I mean, it depends on the depth, but, just letting others know, maybe where you're at. And sometimes telling your story when you're going through hard things is a good thing. So I love that. And I encourage the women that come on my podcast that do share, and I've shared 65 episodes of women who've come through, oh my goodness, hard things, but have turned that around in a victorious way. Some of them have fallen back. Some of them have come through abuse and, you know, mental health, and they're back in that place, you know. And so it's like we can have reoccurrences, We can, we're humans, right? That's the other reason I love this. Like I said, coffee with humans. We are humans.
Yeah.
And humans do fail. And humans aren't perfect. And we
Right.
shouldn't be expected to be, you know. So this is all greatness.
I love that. I just did a short little clip. It was based on a conversation I had yesterday with a lady who is part of a small group that I'm in, and she was having some difficult times of things just she hasn't looked at through the years, and really doesn't want to look at them because she's got some anger around that. Doesn't know how to face the anger, and she's kind of figuring out maybe it's time to do this, and she's working on it, right? And the comment, I can't remember exactly the context of it, but the thought that came to my mind is life is not meant to be optimized. It seems that we are so hell-bent in Western culture on optimizing everything. And we want to optimize ourselves. We want to optimize our time management. We want to optimize our emotional health. We want to optimize our work. We want to optimize. Everything's got to be organized and amazing.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of bullshit, because we are not, as people, we are so fluid and not optimal. I mean, what could possibly be optimal about conflicting feelings in one's head? It doesn't make any sense. But if we took those and just were like, hey, you know what? I feel sad, but happy. What? That's not optimal. And it's okay. And I'm not here to optimize me. I'm here to understand me. I'm here to understand you. And I'm here to work together. Out of that, we could do something great. And it might not be optimal, but who the hell cares? I wonder if we could get into that point, how much more grace we could have for ourselves and compassion for one another. And out of that, I wonder how our world would change.
I know. I think it's wonderful we're having the conversation. And I hope that others will glean from this and will see how important it is to do that, because our world is a hurting world. I mean, we've had all types of things that have hit us, and people are still processing what has transpired. And we've had loss, and we've had change, and we've had turnover, and we are emotional beings, and God created each one of us, and our emotions are part of who we are. I mean, I believe that we're all made in God's image, and we all have that emotional base. And so I really believe that we have to take care of that as well. And, I can tell you, when I healed, it took me years and years and years to have the courage to talk about what I went through. I just put it under the carpet. Oh, I'm going to just keep going. Proof. No, I didn't go through any of that. No, I just, you cannot do that, because it starts to, you get depressed, you get anxiety, you bring up anger. It affects your relationships. It affects your career. It can affect so many different areas if you don't take the time to nurture your emotional health. And, I'm an advocate for taking the time to tell others and talk through things, even if you're doing it in private groups, even if you're doing it with your bestie, even if you're writing it out in a journal. All those things are really important. I mean, I couldn't even bring my nonprofit forward, which is all around storytelling and the healing power of story. And I couldn't bring that forward until I did that hard work myself. And then, having done that hard work, then, I could walk in the freedom that I needed to, and to be able to do all the things I was purposed and supposed to do. And, I'm an advocate for all this. So I just think it's huge. And mental health matters. Your story matters. You matter, people. You matter.
I agree. It's an interesting and timely show that we're having here, our conversation, which happens to be on a show on the Coffee with Humans cruise that I don't know why I said cruise earlier, but hey, we're on a cruise. Why the hell not?
They're
Um,
not.
I was talking with a gentleman the other day, Terry, and we were talking about finding one's purpose, and how he found his purpose having dealt with cancer for 9 years, and now is the last person alive on a newly studied drug for the type of cancer that he's got, and he's staring down the end of like this might come to an end at some point in time, and he's found purpose in telling his story. And now you're talking about story as well, and the necessity of just owning one's story as a way of bringing not only freedom to yourself, and this is kind of the thing that's standing out to me. You bring freedom to yourself, so you feel more connected with you, which is priceless. Then out of that, you have the ability to talk to somebody else who needs to hear. And Terry and I were talking about relationships and trust, the word trust,
Huge.
and how difficult it is to step into trust with somebody. And yet the possibility, maybe responsibility, of somebody in that relationship who can lead first into that space and say, I'm gonna expose myself and my, like you're talking about, I'm gonna expose my story, and I'm gonna trust you in this space. And that actually tells the other person that it's okay to make at least one step forward to trust, to expose their story and open up. Whereas if we view each other as threats constantly, we hide from each other, and it is in that hiding process, like you're talking about, that we take our story, we're like, hold it back, and we're like, I'm not going to look at it, you're not going to look at it, and yet it eats us up. It comes out in all sorts of weird ways, and people can see it. We can see it, especially people who've gone through some of this stuff and healed from these things. You're like, I see
Yeah.
you. I see you. And then this thought of self-compassion, having compassion for somebody else, and then saying, hey, why don't you have compassion for yourself? It's okay. But I don't know. What are your thoughts around? And I know I'm just throwing like dust up in the air, but what do you see on that?
Well, I mean, like I said, I just like some of the women who crossed my path, even in the stories that they have shared around coming out of sex trafficking rings, coming out of childhood abuse, sexual abuse, coming out of drug addiction, homelessness, coming out of cancer survival, coming out of, spiritual abuse and occult, like myself, those that have hit the depths of despair through loss, all kinds of loss, sudden loss of family members, loss of career, setbacks, all. It's we all have to, like you said, we have to make admission of our frailty and our need for a higher power in our lives at times. And that's where my relationship with God really does matter and has made a huge significance, and in the lives of these women who've shared. And sometimes we just can't take it all on. We can't take it on. It's very hard for people who've come through so much trauma. For one thing, if you don't get a chance to heal, you're just also exasperating that trauma. And so you're getting into bad relationships, and then there's trauma that comes from that. And, you are making decisions that aren't the best decisions, and there's trauma and outcomes that come from that. And, you just carry that along in your life. And, I just think it hurts others too along the way. So it's so, to me, take the time to make admission that you're hurting. Take the time to make admission that You don't have all the answers and you need others. Your friend needed to hear you say, it's okay, you can come out. It's okay. You know, don't be perfect here. You've just had two people in your life that you've lost. You know what I'm saying? So I think giving others permission to be able to hurt and to make admission that they can't do it all and they need help or they need support or they need someone to come alongside them, to help them out. I mean, there's a lot of hurting people, there's a lot of broken people, and they're still all over the world. I mean, my podcast reach is in 40 countries, and there are women from all over in these countries that maybe don't have access to, someone to help them. Or, they need to hear that somebody else is going through something similar. Even though we might be in different cultures, people are still people and they're humans and they do experience emotions as a result of difficulty, trauma, those types of things. So hopefully this is making sense. I'm getting very
Absolutely.
deep as we talked.
Well,
I'm getting very deep.
it absolutely makes sense to me. I mean, I've played in this space for some time, and I know what it's like to not play in this space of dealing with emotions and dealing with your own story and all the benefits that can come from really looking at yourself in the mirror, and then it's kind of like that exercise. Somebody told me at one point in time, this exercise where you stare at yourself in the mirror and you just start talking about what you see. Just look at yourself in your own eyes. And people don't do that because it is an intimate process to look at anybody in the eyes for too long, and to look at yourself for a while. Oh, the stuff that you can see in that mirror, it's pretty incredible. And so I'm wondering from your perspective, having had lots of conversations about this and done a whole lot of work on your own, what do you think are some of the first steps if a person feels apprehensive? Because I think we all look at our story, and I remember for myself, looking at it going, not sure if I want to own this or not. What's one of those first steps that people can take to start kind of cracking the shell on maybe the years of stuff that you have to come through and think through? What are the first steps?
Well, the first step from my perspective is that you make admission that you're not perfect and that you're hurting and that you need help. And you need to surrender, I think. You need to make a surrender to a faith. And I believe it's God, Jesus Christ. And so there's that moment of where you have to say, okay, I'm made in your image. You created me, you loved me, you purposed me. I can't do this. I can't do this alone. Help me, guide me, prayer. And then listen to that voice and then go, forward where you can. For me, it was journaling. It was first I surrendered my emotions, my feelings, my need for help with my Savior. Then I went to prayer and asked for direction, guidance, leading me. And then I went into a whole gamut of things like writing my story. And then doors started opening for me to share with people who were empathetic, who cared, who loved me, who understood and encouraged me. You got to be in a safe place, really. You got to be in a safe place when you do this because, some people they have no empathy. And I mean, no empathy at all. They don't care. And so you've got to be very wise about how you go about working on that. If you will feel it, you will know it. I believe. I believe there will be something that will guide you, will lead you, and you will begin feeling a need. I felt a need. I felt I had to. I had to get through this. I had to take the time to work through this, to be able to, because I saw things happening and occurring in my own life. I was, my anger issues, I had other things that just started to bubble up. And, as much as I succeeded and I was successful and all those things, there was still this hurting place, you know. So I really believe that you need to also, like you said, you need to own it, but you also need to write, you need to begin journaling some of those emotions, and then talking with people who have, gone through the process, and getting, some guidance on some different ways you can. I had to undergo stress management counseling. That was difficult. That was so hard. I did that for 3.5 months. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, because I had to really go through and see what had I come out of and the trauma and what it did. And I had to make admission of what it experienced and had to go through the emotions, and all of that. It's like grieving, you have to go through, every single step in the process. You have to get angry. First, you're going, oh my gosh, this never happened to me. Oh, you have to make admission, yes, it did happen to you. Then the next thing is, oh my goodness, now I dealt with the reality. I got to go to the next level of, oh, now what? How am I going to get through this? These people hurt me. And, then you have to go through that whole anger. And then you have to go through the acceptance, of, okay, to how am I going to go forward and what areas do I have to make changes in? But having a mental health counselor there for me was huge. And then I was also part of a church group and women's group and support group. And a lot of that helped me. And, I was able to then start sharing my story and, moving forward. But I didn't linger in it. I had to work through it.
Yeah.
I had to tell people about it. I mean, it's like anything when somebody is going through difficulty, they want to talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of healing in talking about it. But it's like, you got to be careful about who you talk about it with too. Because some people just, they don't care. So you got to really know who those people are around you that
Yeah.
will care, will listen. But I do also believe in the faith, the people, all those things that are important to bring around you as you go through the healing process to prepare to begin to go forward, including the telling of the story. And writing, there's so many books out there. I mean, look at all the books out there. I can't believe the number of books that are out there of people that are telling their stories, in addition to the podcasts and the number of podcasts now where people are seeing how important it is, to tell your story. So I have several, tell your story, love your story, share your story. I mean, it's really something I think that's just so important.
I agree with you. I think also, and tell me how this resonates with you based on the people that you've spoken with and in your own experience. I feel like there's a question mark around the time. Like, when is it really time to own this? When is it time really to look at your story? Because I feel like we sort of dabble in it, as we get further from our story and it starts to affect us. We're like, ugh, I don't know about this. And we kind of touch on it. We're like, nope. Touch on it, nope. Touch on it, nope. And then the weight of it becomes so great that finally we have to give it up. And you said you're getting all spiritual on us, which is totally fine with me. You said you think that the answer is Jesus, and so there's a verse that comes to my mind: "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I what I experienced for myself was the weight the unmanageable weight of holding on to a story which I could not hold on to. And when that weight became just so crushing that I thought I might be gone, like this might kill me, it was like time to do something against that. And here's something else in that. Our ability to hold on to the story, to hold the weight, I think there's a correlation. Our ability to hold that weight for just so long is equal to the strength and the assertiveness with which we use that story for good after we own it.
Yes,
So
I do.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I think you're right on the money, spot on the money. And so, I'm so grateful that you were able to do that, because there are people who've committed suicide out there who have not been able to break free like that.
It's true.
And that's what I'm trying to advocate for. I don't want people to take their life. It hurts so many. I don't want people to hurt. I don't like to see people hurt other people. Hurting people hurt other people. And so I want our world to be a better place. I do believe we can be, and we can change it one story at a time. But yes, I do have to concur, and I do agree with you there. And, that timing, I think you'll know. I think you'll know, things will start to happen. I think the realization came to me when I made my boss cry. I was hurting, and I was in the workplace, and I was just spouting off. And I had a lot of anger. And I was like, I don't really care what I wasn't respecting others. I was just trying to, I was just trying to hurt others, and I think about that. I think about the hurt that transpired. And I mean, even going back in my life before, my daughter used to say, "You're so mean, Mom. Why are you so mean? Why are you so mean?" My husband now said, "When I first met you, you were so mean. You were so hard, And I just, I don't, I don't want others to hurt others, because they're not working through those things. And the simple way to do it is to begin to write down your feelings, your emotions, what you've come through, what you've struggled, where you're at, what's hurting. I mean, there's just so many resources now, including what I'm doing in my nonprofit now too. There's just so many people that are getting on this story training and this healing training and mental health matters. And I'm so proud of those in, the public arena, the celebrities in those that are stepping up, and others, even in the Christian circles and other circles, others, where there's even companies now are saying, okay, certain companies, okay, we got to take a mental health day. Mental health matters. And, so, I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in others' lives. There's movies out about it. I think there's an incredible movie called The Shack, which was about a man who, his daughter was murdered on a camping trip, unfortunately, by a man that was hurting others, children too. And this man's story was around abuse and what he encountered, and how the hurtfulness of all that came through. And his daughter was experienced a violent death through the hands of somebody who had been abused, and he also had been. So, and the healing power of what that is and how that all comes together, and I mean, of course, I'm going to advocate for faith in every area, because to me, it's all critical. And this was all about his faith and how he had to come back to his faith to begin to heal through this. But I'm not saying God does that. And that's the kind of God. I'm just, saying it's just really important that people know that there is something bigger than themselves to help them
Well,
too.
yeah, I mean, I'll advocate for that as well. I know that I was just listening to something, I don't know, last week or the week prior about how one of the one of the tenets of Alcoholics Anonymous and recovering from alcoholism is a belief in a higher power. It is critical. And then I think the 12th step of a 12-step program is that you pass this along and you go help somebody else. And without completing the 12th step, the chances of you going back into alcoholism are significantly higher. And so we have to believe that there's something beyond ourselves to be able to control and manage, and a reason to live, and a reason to continue to tell our story or to look at ourselves, and that it's okay to do that because we can't fall too far because somebody else has us, somebody bigger than us has us, and then to be able to communicate that to somebody else to help them through their journey. And it is that process that has proven to be highly effective, probably the only thing that's been effective for people dealing with drug and alcohol addictions. And I think that same process is true when we look at our trauma and the things that have become unmanageable for us, the weight of our stories. You talked in there about how angry you were and mean. And for our viewers and listeners, I think the process goes something like this: that when we are trying to hide, repress, or deny something to ourselves, and certainly to you looking at us, we become defensive. And that defensiveness looks like an offense at times, right? Because we're trying to, it's like we built ourselves a little protection around this thing. We're like, don't look at this. I don't want you to see this. And it's just like, oh, because whenever we're like, oh, you poked it, we're just gonna like, get away, get away, get away. I think anybody who's dealing with that sort of like, wow, I can't believe I touched, oof, what button did I touch? It's something that person is not willing or able to look at the time. And I wonder if one of the keys is self-compassion, giving yourself compassion and grace.
Yes.
To be able to say, ugh, like here's what I trying to protect. And I think when we do that and then communicate it, we find out that, oh, there's somebody else trying to protect that same type of experience, and I'm not alone.
Absolutely.
And I don't have to pretend anymore and protect this stuff and become a person that I don't want to be, because then there's shame and guilt upon that too. It's like, why am I so mean? I didn't mean to be mean. I didn't mean to communicate that way, but we have to. It's part of our nature of self-protection. So I feel like for our viewers and listeners, if we start to see those things where we have to, where somebody else is pointing out to us, like, why are you protecting yourself in that area? Look under the surface and think, okay, well, what is there? Because there is absolutely something. We're not protecting nothing. We're protecting some sort of shame probably underneath the surface.
Yes, too. And frustration. And, for me, it was just justice. I wanted justice for what had, what I'd been through, what my brother went through, what happened in our family, and what I saw happen to my mom. And, you just, there are a lot of people out there who've come through trauma that are in need of that resolution or that justice, or, but then you have to come to a place of, if you can't get justice the way you think you should get justice, then you have to learn to deal. You have to learn to deal with it and move forward and not be bitter, but be better and move ahead of that experience. And I mean, not saying that you don't make admission, but you have to work on the parts that you can control and work on those things that, make a difference. And there is so much power in story. I hear from so many people of the stories that have been shared and how it really resonated with them and how it spoke to them, how it transformed them when they heard that story, how it helped them in their mental health, in their personal situations, and, it encouraged them, inspired them, just all those wonderful things that can occur when people do share, their their redemption stories, and even their stories of what they're encountering, and maybe others then can have a little more empathy. I always believe you seek to understand, not to be understood. So that's the other thing. But I think back at when I didn't have what I have today, and some of what the hurt that I caused, and thankfully I can go back and, people now who know me and know of me, know what I'm doing, and can those that did get in the front line of my fire, as a result of not being in a good place. They understand, and, why. And although the hurt is still there, you do have to be mindful that your words are so critical, like you say, are really important.
Yeah, it brings to mind the idea that we cannot be more kind to someone than we are kind to ourselves. We cannot have more compassion to someone than we have compassion for ourselves. We have got to, once we release ourselves from prison,
Yes, and
we
it's true.
can help somebody else be released.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you're bringing up the self-grace. That is so important, because, for me, I never gave myself a lot of grace. And I think a lot of others, it put so many expectations on themselves. And, it's all of that, even in marriages. It's like relationships. You got to give each other grace, and you've got to learn how to do that. It takes maturity, and it takes a story, a redemption story, I guess, or whatever you've encountered too.
Well, I can tell you there's a podcast I was listening to from Timothy Keller.
I love Timothy Keller.
Yeah,
his books are fab.
Fantastic books. And he gave like a 9-part series on marriage or something like that a long time ago. And one of the things that stood out from there was the idea that, and I think this is not only true of marriage. I think it's true of especially for marriage or in our day and age, intimate partnerships, or whatever you want to call them. That salvation, the story of salvation, plays itself out in marriages and in relationships, and that's what we are designed. That's what we are about. That's what we should be about doing. We should be about this idea that and I kind of jokingly, but not, was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was like, one person pins the other one to the cross, and then spits on him and says, hey, why don't you, who are you anyhow? And then the other person's like, I forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And right. And it's like this idea of holding space for somebody else's bullshit and dealing with their own stuff, and just being able to say, hey, I'm still sticking around. I'm still here for you. And it's okay as you work all that stuff out, because I know that you don't even like yourself. And I'm still going to be here with you while you don't like yourself, and I'm going to hold that space. And if you need to mistreat me, and I get it, there's a point where that's not it's not a thing. But if you're just working your stuff out, and like you talked about, like, yeah, man, you were so mean. Well, you didn't want to be mean. You just didn't know how to deal, and you need that space with somebody who can help you be safe to learn that it's okay to deal with your stuff. And that's a messy, messy process. There was a song by Shane. Oh shoot. I'm going to find this for you. I invite you to listen to this. Oh my God, I had a meditation on this some time ago, and I was just I was it tore me up. I was crying, walking around. Um,
Wow, that's cool.
it's sung by Shane and Shane.
Uh-huh.
Is he worthy? So Shane and Shane. The song is He Worthy live. I don't know if you can see it. It's probably
I
won't.
can. Is it
Okay,
on your list? Uh-huh.
yeah, it's right there.
Uh-huh.
Is He Worthy? Okay,
Uh-huh. Okay.
go find that song and listen to it. And it says, "Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll?" And the line of but there's that's the chorus part of it. But the verse says, "Can you feel the world is broken? It is. Do you feel the earth tremble? It is. But do you know that all the light can't stop the dark, or
Right.
that all the dark can't stop the light from shining through? We do. Can you see that something about it's just going to make the world brand new or something like that? We do. And for whatever reason I was thinking that in terms of relationships, how two people look at one another and they say, I can feel this world is broken, and that person's like, yeah, I can feel it too. And
Mm-hmm.
and which one of us has the strength and the power to make this new? And the answer is neither of us.
Nope.
Because we need that higher power. We need God to step into that
Jesus.
moment
That's
to
right.
allow us to
Yes.
experience the grace for ourselves, where we're like, I'm not worthy either. I'm sorry. And I was not good to you. And even when I am feeling like I'm good to you, there's something I'm not looking at either. And we just both need to sit here and extend compassion and grace to one another and allow each other to work it out, and then realize that we're taking it back to God and we're allowing him to step into that place, because he's the only one who's worthy to actually make the whole thing whole and new. And our hearts are to make this relationship stronger and whole and new. And it was the meditation.
Wow.
You got to go listen to it. I'm telling you.
I think I've heard that song, but I've never gone that deep in the words. I'm going to have to definitely hear more. Again, I need to go back.
I'm going to see if this. You'd be surprised the technology I have here. And I know we're over time, but I think you have time for us. You got time?
Yeah. Oh, I do.
Okay, me too. Great.
12:30 is when my time. Said,
okay. Great. So I'm gonna play this song for us. Hopefully you can hear it. One moment.
Okay.
Let me know if you can hear this.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Can you hear that? One second. Oh, here we go. All right. Let me know if you can hear this. Can you hear that?
No, I'm sorry. I can't.
Let me see. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I can't do
this. Well, I think I know what song you're talking about. I think I've heard it. I just haven't listened to it to that level.
Okay, well, listen to it, because it is actually. Hold on. I think I can. Can you hear me still?
I can.
Okay. I think you'll be able to hear this. One second. Listen to this in light of a relationship. Two people looking at each other, having this conversation. Here we go.
Okay.
Do you feel the world is broken? We do. Do you feel the shadows deepen? We do. But do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? Do you wish that you could see it all? Is all creation groaning? Is a new creation coming? Is the glory of the Lord the light within our midst? Is it good that we remind ourselves of is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, he conquered the grave. He's David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of
It's very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Very touching. It's very ministering. It's a ministering song. It really does.
It's so beautiful when you look at it in light of, I mean, it's not only is it a great song about God, but
yeah,
if you look at it in light of human relationships, when two people look at each other and you can see, you're like, something is off here and I don't want it to be off. And I need this restored.
yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And both people look at each other. Yeah, this is broken and we want it restored. And then get to that chorus and you're like, and God restores.
Yes, it's so good. I love it. This is a great way to close out in our conversation.
It's so good.
It's what it's all about. It's truly what it's all about. So I thank you so much.
No, thank you. I'm so appreciative of you coming on here, and I believe that my heart. You opened up this whole thing with what your heart was. My heart is that Coffee with Humans is a sacred space for two people to connect and change the world, and that I am convinced is what we should be about. And if we're not about that, I have no idea why we're here.
Yeah, so. I have to agree with you. It's so important. Relationships this is why I'm here, supporting.
Thank you so much
for what you're doing because I love it.
Well, thank you for what you're doing with alteredstories.org. I invite everybody, everybody who it rings with them, go to alteredstories.org and learn more about what Mischelle is doing, helping people tell their stories and come out of prison to freedom, and then being able to pass that along and really, madly influence for positive effect around the world. So thanks so much, Mischelle. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. And I'm so happy that you would be here with me today.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. God bless everything that you're doing.
And you as well. Well, okay. For our viewers and listeners, this is, it's an amazing time. I love it. Coffee with Humans is a live stream talk show where strangers become friends in an effort to make the world a better place. And this has been my friend Mischelle with alteredstories.org. And we will catch you next time.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls.
This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.